77, aka Diz, and this is the Force always.
Okay, so welcome to the show. Let's get on with the Star Wars news. First piece of information is there's not a whole lot of news today and last week and probably next week, but we're going to keep rocking anyway. But Lego has revealed another piece of Lego for celebrating the 40th anniversary for The Empire Strikes Back. You know, the iconic scene, the I am your father scene, probably a collector's piece more than anything. Looks pretty good for Lego, but that's been released, so check that one out. To more news, Star Wars Celebration that was meant to be in Anaheim, which is meant to be about now, was cancelled, as we all know. It's been moved to 2022. I think it's August as well. It was meant to be about now, but next week on the show I'll talk a little bit more about the details about Star Wars Celebration as well. So hopefully we can get some information that I've experienced. Not hopefully, I will be giving you some information I experienced of the ups and downs of an event. And but in its entirety it is a great event, but yeah, so Star Wars Celebration was meant to be now, but it's not, as we all know, so that's just making the news at this point in time. So that's the news for this time around. Let's get into the views. It's all about my story ideas for Star Wars. That's what views is all about. And this week it's something I've touched on before, but it's something that is a part of the 40th anniversary of Empire Strikes Back, which we're all sort of missing out on at the moment because of the whole world crisis. It has been sort of shown in product merchandise and things like that, but not a whole lot, especially in Melbourne, Australia. But the one part, because the first time we actually ever saw the Emperor was technically in Empire Strikes Back. But a fun fact, in the original Empire Strikes Back, the actor who played the Emperor was replaced with the Ian McDiarmid, as we all know, who is the Emperor. It was actually another actor at that point where Darth Vader was speaking to his master Emperor by the hologram sort of thing, so that was a different actor, but an actor that looked very similar, to be honest. A bit more clay looking in its face, a clay mold sort of thing, but it was a different actor. But the story idea, let's get into that. I think, and I did speak about this idea with Pablo Hidalgo, which is one of the story writers back in the Orlando Celebration. That was for The Last Jedi at that point. I spoke to him about, why it would have been great to have the Emperor be the dad of Anakin, making sense of the power and the darkness within Anakin. And he sort of said, you know what, it was a fairly good idea, but it was something that George Lucas touched upon and does explain in one of his books, the Encyclopedia of Star Wars in Revenge of the Sith. If you get that book with all the details about the look, the components and stuff like that, that's what Pablo Hidalgo said to me. He did touch on the idea but rejected it for reasons to be completely unknown. But I just still think it would have been a great idea to have the Emperor be the dad of Anakin. I thought of this idea even back in, I reckon I was sitting on this idea since about 2002, with no influence from internet or other people that I knew of. I'm not really around many Star Wars fans. I'm pretty much a loner in this neck of the woods. There's many Star Wars fans in Melbourne, Australia, but not congregating in one particular section. But that idea of the Emperor being the dad would have made this a great idea of the tale of the bad dads. That would have been great. So that's my story idea for this time around. Let's get into the reviews. Reviews this time around is about actually not the book itself, not the comic itself, but just the front cover. I just thought it was a little bit alarming in not the best way, but not the worst way. It's actually this particular bounty hunter comic book cover. It to me is, a 4 out of 10 straight off the bat. I mean, it does look great. It looks like what we want Star Wars to be. This real intense, science fiction sort of feel. Sometimes I think it does suit Star Wars, but I think there's a different way Star Wars needs to be told. But this cover to me is a 4 out of 10 because it says to me The Terminator. This is a direct pull from The Terminator. I think it fails because the originality is just not there. The idea of being a bounty hunter like this is intriguing, but it's just too much like another iconic movie character, and it looks like The Terminator. It's a 4 out of 10. I just wish that Star Wars steers away from taking other iconic movies into its movie storytelling. The other worst idea I thought was when in Clone Wars there was a Godzilla type character that appeared on Coruscant. I just thought that was too much of a pull of Godzilla. It wasn't Godzilla, it was a Godzilla type character. Anyway, so that's a 4 out of 10 for the comic book cover, not the actual comic book, the comic book cover, but that's my opinion anyway. So that's my reviews for this time around. Let's get into the interviews. Interviews is 2 questions we'll ask myself for you guys out there. The first question, Star Wars at this stage is 3 trilogies. Every second movie has always had a bit of an ordeal, and believe it or not, Empire Strikes Back in the day of the 1980s was under scrutiny. It was very much liked by a number of people out there, but it was very much not liked by a number of people out there. Now, bear in mind, I would have been at the age of 8 years old, and especially being in Melbourne, Australia, you're not so exposed to the whole American fascination with this. Australia was big on it, but not crazy intense like America. But my first question really is, what was the best second part of these 3 trilogies we've got, from 1 to 9, the best? Now, I'll tell you this, it's going to be strange. I will say Empire Strikes Back was the best second part of all the trilogies. But for me, I'm not an overwhelming Empire Strikes Back fan. It just gets over the line for me as a second part. Like, for experiencing that movie as a kid still is in me today, and it is quite a flat, slower moving type movie. And it's still good, and it is great. I've gotten much used to it through the decades, and I think it stands up really well visually, especially being, sets and with puppetry and stuff like that. But I just think it is a little bit bland in its storytelling still to this day. I still love it. I think it's great. It gets, for me, about an 8 out of 10, the actual movie, but it just gets over the line in being a second part to the trilogy. It is my favourite second part to all these Star Wars trilogies. So that's my first question. The second question, what is the worst second part to these Star Wars trilogies? This is going to be a real typical answer from probably Star Wars fans united. Attack of the Clones, when I first saw it, I actually enjoyed it and thought it was better than The Phantom Menace, especially from the point where Obi-Wan and Jango Fett fight on Kamino, and that point of the story to the end. Its real letdown is the way the romance was shown and heard on the actual movie. It was a little bit cringing. and over the top, but it was still it was done as best as you could do it. But it was just there's a lot of visual ideas in sets and what you would speak about and how much you'd really go into that love story, even though you had to go into that love story. It was just a bit overwhelmingly cringeworthy. I still think to this day, I think Anakin Skywalker, Hayden Christensen was, I think, a very good choice, especially the person who or the people who employed him to be that character. I think it was really all in his eyes. They gave away his darkness and how Hayden was portraying Anakin Skywalker. But that definitely, Attack of the Clones is hard to watch to this day, especially with some of the Geonosian part of the film, and especially the romance part of the film. It's a bit of a hard movie to watch. I can rewatch it, but I really do love the part where Kamino happens and Obi-Wan and Jango Fett go at it, having a bit of a duel. I thought that was great. So that was the worst one, Attack of the Clones, which is episode 2 of the Star Wars franchise. Anyway, so that's the interviews for this time around, and that's the show for this week. But next week, as I said before, I'll give you a bit more insight about Star Wars Celebration. I went to two. I went to the Orlando one, and I went to Chicago. I'll give you a bit more insight of the ups and downs, and of that. It will be later in the show, in I'd say my interview section. Until next week, my friends. Anyway, as you know, what I say every week, and in fact I say this in normal life, keep rocking.